There's a lot of misinformation out there about how to become a successful entrepreneur, how to successfully invest in the right franchise. That's why I made this video that breaks down everything that you need to know about the franchising industry before you make this life-changing decision. Let's get started. Welcome back to the channel. I'm John Anderson, where our mission is to help executives and entrepreneurs expand their business portfolio by investing in the dynamic franchise industry. Franchising is a very dynamic industry. It's about an $830 billion a year industry, employing about 800,000 people in the US. Now, most people think of McDonald's or Burger King when they think of franchises, and if so, they would be correct. However, franchises are not limited to just food. There are about 4,000 unique franchise brands and business models in the US, and they represent more than roughly 730,000 different locations across the United States. Let's talk about the financial components to owning a franchise. Obviously, there's an investment level that's there. But what you're going to find, the investment level typically is going to run somewhere between 100,000 on the low to $1 million or more on the high side for a franchise. We call it a cash injection. So your cash injection should be about 50 to 100,000. Plus, you want to make certain to have something called post-closing liquidity. That typically runs about 10% of the total investment of the franchise. In terms of the income opportunities, of course, we're regulated by the FTC or the Federal Trade Commission, so they encourage us not to discuss specific or make promises of certain income claims for obvious reasons. Let's talk about recurring revenue or income in the franchise system. We have a number of franchise business models that allow you to operate it on a semi-absentee basis, that's 15 to 25 hours a week, and you build a flywheel, you build a subscription base of customers. Your team is managing that ever-growing flywheel or customer base, and now the system automatically bills those particular customers on an ongoing monthly basis. A great way to build a great franchise brand. The number one question that you have to ask yourself is, do I want to put my fingerprints all over my business? If you're that type of individual that wants to grow your business from scratch, then franchising is obviously not the right industry for you. However, if you're the type of individual that say, hey, with my schedule and the work-life balance that I'm looking to achieve, I want a proven playbook. I want a proven system. One of the first 2 or 3 items actually that we look at with our candidates and clients, we jump on a 10 to 15 minute introductory call, and we go through a simple client questionnaire looking for the right franchise opportunities. In that client questionnaire, we're also going to pin down which one of the 3 ownership types best suits your work-life balance. Do you want to be an owner-operator, full-time, 30 to 40 hours a week? Do you want to be a semi-passive owner, or do you want to be an executive or absentee owner? After we walk you through that client questionnaire, then we're going to give you something called a Zoracle assessment, very comparable to DISC profiles that you've probably taken many times over the years. It's able to take those results from your personality assessment, and it's going to match us up with the brands in our portfolio of over 600 brands that we represent to give us your top 5 to 7 of the franchise brands or business models that your personality type, your work-life balance that you're looking to achieve match up best with. Where should you start your research when researching the franchise industry to find the right franchise for you? Well, most people will start with Google searches, right? Go over and you can do a YouTube search, start watching some of their YouTube videos, getting more familiar with their processes. And then you're going to either go direct to those franchise brands for an introduction, or you're going to reach out to an experienced franchise consultant. Now, obviously, I'm going to be more biased towards a franchise consultant. Why? Because We work with more than 600 unique brands. And so we're going to be able to help you move faster. So we love it for that reason. The other reason is that our services are always free to you. First of all, you're going to go through that 6 to 8 step discovery process. That first meeting is going to be an introductory, high level overview of the brand, kind of a meet and greet, get to know each other, build rapport with each other. And then typically on that second meetup, you're typically going to get into something called a UE session, unit economics. This is where they're not going to make promises to you about how much money or income you can make. However, they're going to talk about things like inside the FDD or the franchise disclosure document. They're going to cover the system-wide revenues for their system. These are real numbers that their franchisees earned the previous year typically. It's going to give you 23 items. Item 7 is going to tell you about the investment range. The investment range is going to vary depending on what locale you're in. Item 19 is typically going to give you the earnings. Now that's where you're going to see earnings typically broken down by median and averages for their system for the previous year. And you want to make certain when you get to that stage in the FDD, make certain that you're able to talk to a number of their franchisees. I typically will recommend talk to 2 in the top 25%, 2 in the bottom 25%. That franchise disclosure document is also going to help you appreciate who their leadership is leading that particular industry at a high level. Also, as a part of your due diligence, I would highly recommend that after you personally read and study that document, write down or highlight all of your questions. And then on one of your discovery calls with your director of franchise development, ask those questions, get them all out. And if you don't receive satisfying answers on every one of those questions with your director of franchise development, find a quality franchise attorney that you can then do a free consultation with. And they're happy to do those. Why? Because they're hoping that you become a client of theirs once you open your doors. Let's talk about securing financing for your franchise or for your independent business for that matter. I typically will start with recommending that our candidates or clients write a business plan. Build the business plan. If you find a franchise brand that you love, they typically will have a template that they can give you. So you're going to have like 60% of your business plan already pretty much outlined. And then now you're going to go in and do the local research. When I say local research, you're going to need to know the local demographics and psychographics of your market. What's your best guess on how you're going to grow and scale your business with the lowest CPA or cost per acquisition? How are you going to acquire customers at a very reasonable and effective rate? Forecast where you think you'll be in sales at the end of the first 12-month period, year 2, year 3. You typically want to do it at least a 3-year plan. Now, once you get to that franchise brand, the director of franchise business development, ask him or her, hey, do you have some folks internally that can help me finish up? Can they review my business plan? Can they give me some expert input as an insider? And they're more than happy to do that. No banker, no SBA lender is going to loan you $100,000 to $1 million for a business without knowing that you have what it takes to be successful or to increase the odds or the probability of success. And that business plan demonstrates your business acumen. Now, we've just finished talking about financing. What's the most effective way to secure financing for your franchise or your independent business? We've put together a comprehensive funding strategies guide. We encourage you to download that. Click on the link in the description below. Let's talk about the franchise agreement. Typically, depending on the business model, if it's brick and mortar, you might be 90 to 120 days out before you get to signing your franchise agreement. If it's a work from home model or a remote franchise model, you might be ready to sign your franchise agreement in 45 to 90 days. The franchise agreement, or the FA, typically is somewhere between 40 to 80 pages in length. They're pretty extensive. And it's going to cover everything in terms of what you get, what you're paying for, what you're investing in with that franchise system to become a franchisee. Again, after you've studied it, you've read it, I highly recommend you can go through it with your director of franchise development, but I'd also highly recommend that you consult with a franchise attorney. Again, Google best franchise attorney near me, and our industry, we have a number of great franchise attorneys that we could also refer you to that does a ton of work for our clients all over the United States. Most franchise agreements are typically 10 years. Now, what happens after 10 years? Well, after 10 years, assuming that you've been performing at the level in which you know you're capable of performing and that the franchise agreement, they also look at you as an asset, not a liability to their system. They look back over the past 10 years. Has he or she been following the franchise agreement, the franchise system? If so, they're going to want to renew that franchise agreement with you as well. Never go with a franchise that's not willing to give you exclusivity for your territory. Typically, you'll start with one territory. Normally, you look for your zip code where your home resides, where you live, obviously. And then you want to expand out from there. Can you cover a 10-mile radius or a 50-mile radius? Of course, you're going to have territories or some special software that the industry uses to parse out and build custom exclusive territories. But make sure you've got that exclusivity component in there. And also something that I recommend for our candidates and clients is look for the opportunity of being given first right of refusal for contiguous territory. So you have a colleague where he or she's operating in a contiguous territory or county to yours, adjacent to yours. If he or she elects to retire or exit the business for whatever reason, you want to have first right of refusal. All right, let's talk a little bit about training and development. Of course, in my opinion, there's nothing more important to improve the probability of success of an entrepreneur or a franchisee than the recruiting, the selection, and the training and the development of their team. Now, at the highest level, you as the franchisee, you're going to get comprehensive training. Training typically is going to be at least 5 days, in some cases, 10 days to up to 2 weeks. They're going to teach you in training how to build your sales pipeline so that by the time you graduate from training, you already have some known customers or folks that are very close to signing or becoming your customers once you do your grand opening. Most of the brands that we work with are also going to have what's called a quick start or sure start program. That means they're going to want to help you have a very effective launch. In the first 90 to 120 days, they're going to want to see you get off to the quickest start humanly possible. Now, with all that said, any good leader knows that he or she should be having ongoing weekly sales and marketing meetings, customer service meetings, at a minimum 1 time per week, right? Start at the early part of the day, get those huddles in. Everyone kind of knows what the game plan is for the day. You'll have to decide what's best for you personally, what's your leadership style, and incent your team to really get after it day after day. And most of our franchise brands that we represent, they're going to have a really strong technology stack. And in that CRM, inside of that technology stack, you'll really be able to manage a lot of the KPIs or key performance indicators to determine how your folks are doing on the front end and the back end of your organization driving sales. But there's no question, training is essential to the success of any enterprise. And the franchise system has a great training program from start to finish, as well as great ongoing training for you and your team. I know we've covered a lot of information today with you, and that's why I've made a series of videos that goes deeper into each one of these topics. Please click on the video on the screen right now. And never forget that entrepreneurship is your only business mechanism that can help you to become truly the captain of your own ship.